A month before the college entrance exam I saw my own score floating above my head. Every practice test I took made the number drop by 10 points. But if I skipped school for a day it would rise by 10 points. I partied for a whole month, and the score above me climbed to 710. But when the real results came out I only got 40. The 710 became my brother Michael's score. My furious parents shipped me off to work in an electronics factory. That same night a group of strange thugs cornered me in an alley and beat me to death. In my final moments I heard my brother Michael's voice. He always thought he was so much smarter than me, but he still fell for the trick of the floating score. That's when I understood. The score above my head was being controlled by my brother all along. When I opened my eyes again I was back 1 month before the exam. The number floating above me read exactly 600. Michael cheerfully suggested they study together that night. Hearing his invitation, I tore my practice test into pieces right in front of him. I declared I wasn't going to study so close to the exam. The score above my head instantly increased by 10 points. Michael pretended to be disappointed, but the moment I turned around a smirk crept onto his face. Little did he know I was preparing a special show just for him. After refusing his study invite, I headed to my room to sleep, but Michael wasn't ready to let me off the hook. He invited me to a tutoring session with a teacher. I pushed his hand away, saying cramming at the last minute was useless. I told him to go alone because I was going to play video games. Michael said my grades were good, but I shouldn't get overconfident. He repeated the same words he used in my previous life, trying to see from my reaction if I truly believed in a floating score. I met his gaze with a slight smile. I told him I would still beat him without studying and to get lost. Michael looked disappointed but couldn't hide the smile on his lips. Watching his confident walk I knew he was the overconfident one this time. This life he was the one letting his guard down. Back in my room the floating score had already reached 620, but the moment I opened my backpack, the number started falling. After I finished reviewing the last concept from class, my score had dropped to 580. I opened the hidden camera feed I had placed on Michael, just in time to see him looking panicked. He was muttering about why my score kept dropping. He said he knew I was a liar claiming not to study, while secretly working hard, but he figured it didn't matter because when my score fell below 500, it would simply explode above my head. So studying was a death sentence for me. My heart skipped a beat. I needed to find a way to trick the floating score system first. I spent an hour trying countless methods, but no matter what I did the score kept dropping. At 500 points it turned red and started flashing. I panicked and immediately stopped all studying. Instead I went to a bar and booked a private room for the night. Only when my score climbed back to 630 did I finally relax. And Michael had noticed. My score was back to 630. On the camera feed he looked very pleased with my actions. He said he knew I was dumb enough to fall for the floating score trick, laughing that I actually believed I could score 630. He claimed that score was destined to be his. Watching his excitement I snorted and turned off the feed. He had no idea I had already fooled the system. I dropped the chalk on the floor and lay down on the bar room sofa, admiring the walls covered in mathematical formulas. That was what I had really been doing all night. But the floating score above me detected nothing wrong. A waiter knocked to remind me it was time to pay. I immediately called my brother, telling him I was stuck at a bar and needed money. He pretended to be shocked that I was at a bar. I said I just wanted to relax before the exam, begging him not to tell our parents and to send me 10,000. Michael kept lecturing me about going home to study, saying the exam was too important. I asked if he was really my brother. If the bar called our parents, I would be dragged home to study for sure. I pleaded with him, saying I just needed to unwind before the big test. Michael pretended to hesitate, telling me to remember to study too. I agreed and hung up. Michael transferred 15,000, his entire savings. With his money I stayed comfortably at the bar for a month. I lived there in luxury, only returning home with dark circles under my eyes the day before the exam. By then the score above my head had reached 710. Michael smiled and handed me my exam admission ticket, saying he was glad I made it back in time. I managed a weak smile before my father slapped me across the face. He yelled that only my grandmother's insistence was letting me take the exam, asking if I knew what a failure I was to go to a bar at such a critical time. He grabbed my ear and twisted it hard. I tried to pull his hand away, but he kicked me in the knee. I fell to the floor, my ear throbbing in pain. He showed no sign of stopping. I finally screamed that I had an exam that day, asking if he was trying to kill me. He said after wasting a month at a bar, I probably shouldn't even take the test. But Michael quickly stepped in, reminding Dad of Grandma's words, that I had to take the exam. Hearing about Grandma, Dad reluctantly let me go. Holding my ear I was sent to the testing center with Michael. When the 2 days of exams ended, Michael rushed out excited to tell our parents the good news. He felt he did extremely well, asking if they could throw a celebration party on score release day. Our parents looked at him with complete adoration. They agreed to invite Grandma to witness his success. They promised a grand celebration. Michael said even though Grandma never liked him, this time he would give her a real surprise. At that moment the floating score above my head vanished. Watching Michael's confidence, I smiled to myself knowing he was in for a surprise of his own. Right after the exams finished, our parents took Michael on a graduation trip. Being left behind didn't upset me. In fact, I was relieved. With them gone I could focus on my own plans. I dialed a number I knew by heart. When the call connected I quickly said, "Hello uncle. I solved the problem you gave me last time." The voice on the other end was thrilled. He said I was a huge help to the research institute. My uncle picked me up and took me to his workplace. We worked on complex math problems for a full month, until the day the exam scores were released. He had someone drive me to the celebration venue. Entering the banquet hall, I saw my parents and brother back from their trip, surrounded by a crowd of people offering congratulations. congratulations. They praised my father for his good fortune, having two such intelligent sons. Others said it was an honor to work with our family company. So many people weren't there just for our scores. They came because of my grandmother's decree. She had announced that whichever grandson got into the better university would inherit all her wealth and control of the company. My grandmother was the true head of the family business. Today was really about choosing the company's new successor. So all the business partners came to watch. I took a deep breath and walked straight to my grandmother. She smiled and took my hand, asking if I was confident. I nodded and promised I wouldn't let her down. Grandma was the only one in the family who ever treated me well. But in my past life after Michael's scheme, she was deeply disappointed in me when the results came out. 3 days after I was sent to the factory, she died of a heart attack. This time I was determined not to fail her again. Michael noticed me and quickly walked over, asking why I was lying to Grandma. He approached with purpose, saying I partied at a bar for a month before the exam, so there was no way I did well. He accused me of betraying Grandma's trust. Michael showed photos of me at the bar to everyone at the party. My father looked at me with disgust, saying if he were me, he would be too ashamed to show up. Michael estimated his score at 700. Dad guessed I wouldn't even reach 200. He said after today the whole city would belong to my brother, and I would have to depend on him to survive. Some business partners jumped in, claiming they had seen me at the bar living it up, but my exam results would be another story. They laughed, saying I couldn't possibly compare to the second young master. The room erupted in laughter. My father even tossed the keys to a luxury car on the table, saying if I got into a better school than Michael, I could have the car right then. I laughed coldly and said just a car. I thought he would make a bigger bet. If he was so sure about Michael, he should bet all the family properties. My parents hesitated, but the crowd scoffed, asking if I knew what a 700 score meant. They said it was an incredible achievement, that Michael was Ivy League material. They said even if Dad bet everything he owned, I wouldn't win a thing. I pretended to be surprised and dared my father to put all his assets on the line. He was still uncertain, but my mother and Michael urged him on. Finally he agreed to list all his assets publicly, announcing he would give everything to whichever son got into the better school. It was an all-or-nothing wager. The moment he finished speaking, the exam score portal opened. Michael stepped forward confidently, saying he would go first to show how accurate his estimate was. He entered his information without a trace of worry. His score flashed on the screen. It was exactly 700 points. The room erupted in cheers and applause. I frowned slightly. Michael had indeed taken the score that once floated above my head. He gave me a look of pure contempt, then pushed the laptop toward me, saying it was my turn to check my score in front of everyone. I entered my information. The next moment I was stunned. The screen showed a score of 50 points. It was happening again. My score and Michael's added up to a perfect 750. He sneered that even guessing randomly would yield more than 50 points. Michael let out a cold laugh. He demanded that I kneel and apologize to him. As the new head of the family company, he would send me to a mental institution for treatment. Michael kicked me hard in the knee. My father forced my shoulder down, making me kneel on one knee. I looked to my grandmother for help, but she just sighed in disappointment, saying I had let her down completely. I yelled out an explanation that the university admissions decisions weren't out yet. Everyone in the room just laughed at my words. Michael pretended to be sympathetic, saying I heard them. If I didn't kneel and apologize, it would be hard for him to establish his authority. I gritted my teeth and told him he would never get into a top university. Michael smirked and asked if I really thought so. He grabbed my face and forced me to look toward the entrance. Representatives from top universities had just arrived. He leaned close to my ear and whispered he wanted me to watch him get accepted right in front of me. While I wouldn't even get into a community college, Michael stood up triumphantly and walked toward the university officials. But as he reached them, his smile froze on his face. The show I had prepared was finally starting. The admissions officers walked right past him and came straight to me. They asked if I was interested in attending.